Hi friends, I am Sudhir Shenoy and following is a presentation on wealth conducted by me on the 23rd of December 2016. I hope you will enjoy the presentation and learn from it. Thank you. My personal opinion, my conviction and my experience is, if we keep wealth in the right perspective, giving it only as much importance or significance in our lives, we can lead a much happier life. Our investment decisions become more rational, and in many ways, we tend to firm up our retirement plans. It is very important to keep wealth in the right perspective. And that is why I thought I will touch upon this subject of wealth. Let me go to how I look at wealth, what is its meaning, and what I think is the longevity of wealth in our hands. If I ask you at random, what is wealth? When I say wealth, what comes to your mind? Just one word. Anything. When I say wealth, what comes to your mind? Money. Gold. I'm talking about property, buildings, maybe a nice car, a yacht, a watch. This comes to our mind when I say wealth, correct? Actually, the dictionary definition of wealth is an abundance of valuable material possessions. That is the dictionary definition of wealth. And by that definition itself, it means wealth is non-living. Wealth is non-living. If we all agree that this is the definition of wealth, then I can really console you, comfort you by confidently stating wealth, according to me, can never be created nor destroyed. Let's take the example of 1 ton of iron ore lying deep inside the ground in Western Australia. Per se, this iron ore or this type of soil is no different from the clay that is found in my native coastal Karnataka, or for that matter sand, what is found in the deserts of Arabia. All three forms of rock or soil have been in existence probably for the past 4.5 billion years since Earth was formed. It's only a couple of thousand years back that man realized that there is some value in this type of soil called iron ore and decided to extract iron out of it, maybe then adds, because it now becomes valuable when you have iron. As soil under the ground, it is of no value. Maybe then he makes a weapon out of it, adds more value. Maybe makes a wheel of a wheelbarrow. But if you look at it in the real sense, the number of atoms that comprise of this 1 ton of iron ore exactly is always going to be finite. We cannot multiply it. Probably in the process of transforming it from under the ground into iron, carbon atom from this soil could join with 2 atoms of oxygen and make carbon dioxide, or an atom of iron, of Fe, could join with anything else to make something. But that individual atoms that comprise this form of iron, the atoms that is comprised of, is going to be finite, whatever value we have. If we are able to understand this concept, then I continue my statement by saying wealth can neither be created nor be destroyed. What we do is dormant wealth, wealth that is lying idle, silent, unused, is transformed into what I call junk wealth. And in this process of transformation, we keep attaching value to it. You may ask me, what is junk wealth? That is the only word that probably is difficult to understand in this. Dormant is quite clear. Wealth that is not useful, lying idle. When we transform this iron ore into iron, there is some sort of waste that we come across. Maybe part of the soil is washed away with water. Something in the furnace settles at the bottom. We take it and throw it away. We call it sludge. Something in the process starts floating at the top of the furnace. We skim it, throw it away, we call it slag. Part of it is turned into ash. Part of it is going into the atmosphere as gases. And we don't regret letting go. part of this iron ore. Absolutely no regrets, because our idea is to extract iron out of that one. Yes, we can call it junk, but I attach the word junk wealth because of the premise that 1 ton of iron ore was considered wealth initially. As we process it, we take whatever is required by us, we call it value, and the rest we just throw it in. So I define that what we throw away without any regret, no hesitation. That is what I call junk wealth. To explain this concept further, let me go back to Western Australia. Let's assume that the Australian government auctions that 1 ton of iron ore to a large mining giant like Rio Tinto for say $100 US. Rio Tinto pays $100 US for that 1 ton of iron ore deep inside the ground. Next, what do? They excavate it. They use different types of machinery, bring it to the surface, transport it by wagons, let's say to the port of Headland in Australia, which is a large mining export port. And then they make an offer to any company in the world to buy it in that form, ready to be transported at the port of Headland. Let's say a large iron and steel plant in China, like Bao Steel, buys this for $150 US because now they've added value to it. It was in the ground for $100. Transported and brought to the port of Headland, $150. Bao Steel buys this steel, takes it all the way from Headland to a port in China, takes it into their factories, starts processing it. Now they melt this iron ore and they realize, let's say, 750 kilos of wrought iron. Now I think I need not explain to you what happened to the other 250 kilos. Obviously, it went as washed away mud with water, part of it as sludge at the bottom of the furnace, part of it as slag, something goes into the atmosphere as gas, something flies away as ash. And when I say they extract 750 kilos of iron, you will not feel anything wrong. They have every right to do it because that is what they were, that was their objective. They knew beforehand that they will get only 750 kilos, so there is no regret that they have lost 250 kilos. Now, for the sake of an argument, let's assume this exact 750 kilos is converted into mild steel, beaten into sheets of thickness 0.4, 0.6 mm gauge, suitable for an automobile industry as a raw material. A car manufacturer in India purchases these sheets of steel of 750 kilos for say $300 US because now they have added value to it. From iron ore which was in the shores of China, they have made iron out of it and then steel out of it. So they have claimed they have added value and now it is $300 US, at which the car manufacturer in China purchases the 750 kilos of steel. They ship it all the way to India. They make body parts of the car. Let's say they make the shell of the car, the engine hood, the boot lid, doors, and again for the sake of argument, let us assume that this 750 kilos of bent sheet metal is exactly what is required to make one car. Just for an argument. Now, when they make a car, they add more value to it, of course. They paint it, they polish it, that sheet metal I'm talking about. And assembled as a part of the car, I go to the showroom in Bangalore and purchase this very car for, let's say, $5,000. Of course, they have put a steering, they have put the under chassis, they have put the engine, transmission, the whole car. But on the assumption that 750 kilos of sheet metal, what is used, has come from that 1 ton of iron ore, what was in Western Australia. When I buy the car for, say, $5,000 US, on a pro rata basis, I believe that I have paid $500 US for that 750 kilos of sheet metal, which is a part of the car, duly painted, polished, and everything. Now I'm enjoying the car. 5 years later, I look at a better model of the car, so I sell my car, which I had bought 5 years back. As is the normal trend in the automobile industry, the car value after 5 years is half the original price. Okay. I go to the market and sell it without any thought at $2,500 US. In the process, the buyer, whoever has bought the car from me, has theoretically bought that same 750 kilos of steel sheets bent into the car 5 years later at $250 on a pro rata basis. hands change a couple of times, and probably in about 15 years' time, it is ready to go to the junkyard. The last owner of the car goes to the junkyard and sells it to the junkyard. At what price? 500 US dollars. He is happy because it has already depreciated, it has given its worth. Pro rata basis, the value of that sheet metal, what made the car 750 kilo, is now valued at $50. Let's take a pause here and see what has happened. Iron ore that was lying deep inside the grounds in Western Australia, undisturbed for almost as long as Earth was in existence, for the past 4.5 billion years, has suddenly found some value in human beings. We have extracted it and pushed it through a value chain. At the highest peak, that same 1 ton of iron ore, in the form of sheet metal of 750 kilos, I have paid 500 US dollars. And at its least, the man in the junkyard has paid 50 US dollars. And this entire cycle in a matter of 15 years. You get the seriousness of the situation. The iron ore has been lying there for billions of years, untouched. And we, as humans, are so clever, we attach value to it, and in a matter of 15 or 20 years, we put it through a cycle, maximum 500, minimum 250. Let's see what happens next. Now, the junkyard man removes all the sheet metal from there. He separates the metal from the car, and for the sake of an argument, he takes the 750 kilos and sells it to a mini steel plant at any price. Now, the mini steel plant buys this as junk metal, puts it through his furnace again to melt it. If I would like to differentiate, a proper steel, iron and steel plant starts his cycle from iron ore. A mini steel plant starts from scrap iron. That is the difference, because their processes are different. So now he melts this, and in any process, maybe he will lose something to rusted iron out of the 750 kilo. Again, part of it as sludge, maybe slag, maybe atmospheric gases, ash, whatever. He gets 600 kilos recovered out of the 750 kilos for the sake of argument. He is happy with it. He has actually purchased this for $50. So now he adds value, and out of the 600 kilos what he recovered from this 750, he's still able to make a profit. And then what does he do? He sells it back to the car manufacturer, not 600 from my original 1 ton, plus of course there is other material, so he sells whatever he needs. But let us focus only on that 1 ton which we were talking about. Now that has come to 600 kilos. Let us assume that this cycle goes again and again and again. I can confidently state that in 8 or 10 cycles, there will not be a single atom of that 1 ton of iron ore any more useful to man. First cycle in 15 years, it became 600. Next cycle in 15 years, it became maybe 550, then 400, then it goes on. I'm talking about those specific atoms that came out of that 1 ton of iron ore. Now you will realize that iron ore that was lying dormant, not disturbing anybody, peacefully, for billions of years, we are so clever as human beings that we put it through a cycle and put it in a spiral of valuation. We start by $100 that Rio Tinto paid when they bought it under the ground. Then we push it to 150, 300, 500, 250, 50, then back to this. We keep on zigzag. At the end of it, after say about 150 years, 10 cycles of 15 years each, just in a matter of 150 years, there is not a single atom of that 1 ton of iron ore useful for us. That is why I say dormant wealth is transformed into junk wealth by us humans. And in the process of this transformation, we add value to it. Believe me, gentlemen, ladies, I have thought about it very hard. Anything that we talk about, plastic, rubber, whatever, non-living, this is the cycle that it goes through. Maybe it may take 500 years for some material. Some material we may destroy, natural material, in 20 years, 15 years, 100 years, 150 years. But there is a definite life cycle for this process. I use dormant material, what is given by God, and it has been existent in this world since it was created. Except for meteor showers which come from outside the world, there is no value added, there is no atom that is added to the world every year. The number of atoms in this world is absolutely finite. It's a question of how we evaluate it. Now, thinking a little further, what is very, very scary is when we destroy or when we significantly change the balance between dormant wealth and junk wealth, I can predict that life on earth will come to an end. We are talking about global warming, we are talking about parameters that we measure. But in reality, if you go to the basics of science, to the atomic level, what I am saying will make a lot of sense. Think about it. Because this is what is happening. The carbon molecule somewhere is getting added to two atoms of oxygen and making carbon dioxide. Both have been in existence in the world. Nothing came from outside. It is our creation of adding these two together to make it junk wealth, which just disappears in the atmosphere. If I had not made the process, this carbon atom would have been remaining in its own dormant form, the oxygen would have been remaining in its own dormant form, and all of us can live happily ever after. It is our creation of this junk wealth. And my strong belief is, when this balance is sufficiently distorted, life on earth will come to an end. Let me say so much about this wealth in its physical form. I also appreciate, I'm also living in this world, we need wealth in all the examples that you have given, as bank balance, as a building. Let's look at it slightly differently. Let's say, what is the longevity of this wealth, what we are talking about? One aspect is, wealth itself is a mirage. There is nothing like wealth. But living in this capitalistic world, we definitely need what we all talk of or perceive as wealth to survive. It is but natural. I am also a part of this society and I know I need such things of value. Let's see what is the longevity of wealth. How long we can enjoy this wealth. It is said that wealth remains within a family for not more than 3 generations. While in a scientific sense it may or may not be true, in a real life situation it is true. Let me give you an example. My great grandfather, he was not rich. I don't know who he was, but he was not rich anyway. Let us assume that in the 1940s he left behind 10 lakhs of rupees in cash, 1940s, and 10 acres of land for his future generations to enjoy. In the 1940s, this 10 lakhs was a princely sum. Probably it could have purchased me the whole of Mysore. I don't know, I'm saying. Princely sum. If my great grandfather today were to walk in and say, Sudhir, this is 10 lakhs for you, it would not even make me look at him again, unfortunately. It has no significance. That value has no significance today. Am I right? He had kept carefully 10 lakhs of rupees. Forget demonetization. Let us assume that that currency is still valued today. But it would have had no value. What about the 10 acres of fertile land that he had kept? My great-granduncles, my granduncles, my grandnephews, I don't know who all relatives, if that wealth was divided between all the legal heirs of my great-grandfather, I would have got but a few square feet at the most. He had left 10 acres for his future generations. So, depreciating value of wealth because of inflation and family tree expansion. So, over a period of time, I can say that what is the first statement is in many ways true. Wealth doesn't remain in a family for more than 3 generations. By then, because of the inflation and family tree expansion, it just gets diluted. Unless every generation adds what we call value to it, investing the money carefully in certain ways, or expanding the land holding. Something I need to do. If I just sit down and because he has kept, it will vanish in no time because of the family tree expansion and inflation. Let's go to another example of this longevity of wealth. If I were to tell you, write your lineage up to 4 generations. Very easy. Yourself, you write your name, your father's name, his father's name, his father's name. That is one lineage. Your name, your mother's name, her father's name, his mother's name. That is also lineage. So you belong to all these lineage. Correct? You, your mother, her mother, her mother. That is also your lineage. Each one of us have directly 16 lineages. If you go to the fourth generation, that means me, my father, his father, 4 generations. Similarly, if we are married for 10 years, we should also know the lineage of our wife. We agree, because she is our dharmapatni, janam sati. So we say 4 generations. So theoretically, without any effort, we should all be able to write 32 lineages. But practically, how many we can write? I challenge. Not more than 2. Maybe if you are really closely knit family, maybe 4 or 5. If anybody can write 6, I think he is a genius. Without referring to calling your old relatives and asking, just sitting here, you can write maximum 2, believe me, maybe 3. So if I keep wealth for my son and his son to enjoy, it is very, very, very likely that my great grandchildren who are enjoying my wealth will not even know my name. that is longevity of wealth. Believe me, that is longevity of wealth. It is something that we should definitely think of and look at wealth in a different perspective. Let's see what has happened. Earth is almost 4.5 billion years old. Millions of species have evolved and maybe a few 100,000 have perished in these billions of years, or millions of years that life has been in existence. Human beings in this form as Homo sapiens, walking erect, have evolved roughly about 200,000 years back as Homo sapiens, maybe with a little more hair or whatever, but what we define in scientific terms as Homo sapiens have been in existence for the last 200,000 years. But the population explosion of human race in this world has been phenomenal. We as human beings, alive and walking on this planet, reached 1 billion population at the end of the 18th century, very early in the 19th century, let's say in the year 1800, just close by 1800. In the following 100 years, we doubled. In the following 75 years, we tripled again to 6 billion. And by the year 2050, there will be approximately 9.5 billion human beings walking the planet. Imagine a race or a species of animal that took 200,000 years to reach 1 billion, multiplied 10 times in a mere 250 years. That is something that we need to think about. Probably no species in the world would have multiplied by that rate. 200,000 years to reach the first billion, and the following 250 years to reach 10 times that number. Now you may ask me, is it just the increase in population that is causing this disruption or pushing the world towards its extinction? What is really pushing the world towards its edge and towards destruction is the desire of each one of the human beings to amass as much wealth as possible. Because I am telling you that wealth is finite. It is number of atoms living in this world, or existing non-living atoms living in this world. The desire of each human being to acquire as much wealth for himself as possible is what is pushing this world towards its extinction. Let me give you an example to make you understand what is really happening. The largest thermal power plant, the single largest, one thermal power plant in the United States burns 16,500 tons of coal every day. Imagine, 16,500 tons of coal every day is burned by one single power plant, the largest in the United States. That is the rate at which we are moving forward. That is the rate at which we are generating wealth for ourselves. There are more than 1.1 billion Apple products in the world today, and Apple is only a 40-year-old company. And every one of these Apple products is a non-living thing. Going back to my earlier definition, everything has come from natural resources somehow, converted from dormant wealth into so-called valuable iPhone 6s or 7 or whatever. Today, there are more than 1 billion vehicles running on the roads in the world. More than 1 billion vehicles. All the vehicles have come from non-living things. Worse, they are burning non-living fuel and further causing pollution. I am not looking at collateral damage because of the wealth. I am just saying that there are 1 billion vehicles running on the world today. That itself is good enough. What is worse is they are burning fuel. And that is also a non-living fuel which is coming from dormant sources. Now it starts hitting you that blind acquisition of wealth by human beings. One, we are not actually acquiring wealth. We are putting our supremacy over the dormant resources. So I am a rich man. What it means is I have destroyed more of the world for my benefit. Straight away. It is not a communist mindset. It is a real situation that we are all facing. If I am a rich man, I have 50 cars. What does it mean? I have destroyed the world more than what Mr. Shetty has. Maybe he has 1 car or he has 2 cars. I have destroyed the world more to my benefit. Simple. And also I am pointing out that there is no longevity of this world. I mean this wealth in three generations or in 4 generations, it is gone anyway. My doctor friend here will tell me that normally in medicine it is said that in 100 years, in a century, 3 generations pass by. Normally it is said 100 years, 3 generations. Maybe it has slightly increased now because of the longevity of people. If I were to ask you, we are all maybe close to 50, not the children here, but the adults, 50 plus minus. If I were to tell you, can you imagine how the world will be in the next 50 or 75 years? I'm sure many of you have very good ideas. Maybe you will come back and tell me, Mr. Shanoy, there will be no more gadgets to communicate with people. It will be all mental telepathy. I think of Dr. Vani and he thinks of me and we start speaking. Yes, we are able to visualize. Maybe we will say, somebody who is in the automobile industry will say, solar powered cars flying over the road. There is no need for a road. Good thinking. Somebody from the medical or scientific field will say, there will be nanochips. We'll just have one inserted deep inside the bone at the end at birth, and there is no civil ID, there is no passport, nothing. You walk through a machine and it tells you who you are, who's your father, who's your grandfather, everything. Let me tell you, very sadly, in 2100, today we are, say about 75 years from now, 2100 AD, there will be 12 billion people walking on this earth. And don't be surprised. Not a single man out of the 12 billion will know any of us by our name. Just imagine. When we try to visualize 50 years from now, it is not difficult. I can think of so many things. I am very clever. But at the same time, it will be a shock to us that not a single human being out of the 12 billion will know us by our name because we have perished. 4th generation, 5th generation, there is no chance. If I go back saying, please tell me your name, your father's name, his father's name, and his father's name, all of us will fail. All of us will fail. There will not even be a single proper reply. So that is why I am hammering that understand what is wealth, keep it at its place, don't give it undue importance. Yes, wealth is required by all of us, but to a certain extent, to lead a comfortable life and maybe take care of our children till they do their education and maybe earn for themselves. But beyond that, our efforts are simply going to be wasted and going to be irrelevant. And in some ways maybe cause problems when our great-grandchildren are fighting in the court and trying to prove whose property, who is the rightful owner of this property. Without even knowing my name, they are fighting who is the real owner of this property. So is it worth it for our children, their children and so on? When I was in school, I studied a doha from Kabir Das. He says, पूत सुपूत तो धन क्यों संचय, पूत कुपूत तो धन क्यों संचय. What he is saying is, your worthy son will earn for himself, and your worthless son will anyway squander your wealth. So for whose sake are you amassing wealth? Anyway, I will conclude this session by telling you that the inspiration for this thought process has come from these profound lines from Bhagavad Gita. It says, whatever happens, happens for good. What did you bring with you which you have lost? What did you produce which was destroyed? You brought nothing with you when you came into this world. You are taking nothing with you when you leave. Whatever is yours today was somebody else's yesterday and will be somebody else's tomorrow.